Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, good morning. It's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 44 of the Cognitive Podcast, and this is my 61st birthday episode. Yay! I just finished recording and editing episode 43 because I got behind while I was vacationing with the lovely and graceful and gracious Knitmores up north. And so this may not have as much content, but I still wanted to get something out on the regular schedule and get myself back to the more normal routine. First of all, let me tell you, my philosophy has changed. I used to keep my birthday secret. I didn't tell everybody. I didn't tell anybody, in fact. And, well, that's all over now. I've decided as I'm aging that you see a lot of people age and hide their birthdays. My husband is one of them. I'm going the exact opposite direction. I want everybody to celebrate my birthday. I'm getting older. I don't know how many more of them. I really don't. It's like this weird sort of raffle at my age where you're like, will I die next year? Will I make it another 40 years? You just can't tell anymore. So I'm just happy to be here, and I want people to celebrate with me and be happy. I professionally treat a lot of unhappy people, and I think that's why it's dawned on me that now would be the time to seize the day and enjoy the happiness. So if you would like to comment on my really happy birthday episode, you can do that on our group on Ravelry, or you can do it at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. You are welcome to do either one, and I deeply appreciate your comments, which leads me to say in the warm thanks department, thank you, Christo Emily. I really enjoyed your post, and also I have to say, I had not realized that, how can I say this, in the past, I may have omitted putting in the Celsius temperature on my recipes. Now, to be fair here, Christo Emily thanked me because I put in the temperature on that recipe in the last episode on 42, I think, episode 42. I put it in both Fahrenheit and Celsius or centigrade, and that really made me sit up and take notice. She was thanking me. She was nothing but graciousness itself, but I was sort of horrified because I thought, oh no, I know I have listeners in Canada and Western Europe, and I thought, oh no, I'm really sorry if I've been leaving that out. But I really appreciated your post, Christo Emily, and it's lovely to hear from you again. I also want to thank all the folks who sent their very kind birthday wishes as I frantically posted birthday post after birthday post in various places because it was the equivalent of Dr. Gemma screaming, hey, 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 you should wish me a happy birthday a lot of times. So thank you for the people who sent the kind birthday wishes. I really, really enjoyed that. So you ask, this is all very well, but this was supposed to be the Knitting Psychology podcast. So can we have some knitting, please? Sure. What's on my hooks and needles? Well, I have finished nothing because I just finished the last episode. I just finished my pair of socks, my beautiful, beautiful socks. And the really pretty socks, I was calling them. And I have not yet wound. I have some old Fiber Files yarn. It's actually from her September 2010 yarn club. How's that for some deep stash diving? And it's the most majestic set of purples, but I haven't gotten to it because I suddenly realized I am not winding a darn thing until I finish a few things. Top on that list is probably the wild lettuce shawl and also catching up the temperature blanket. The wild lettuce shawl is now sitting at my knees, and I have a spare hour this morning before I start seeing patients again because my wonderful vacation is now over. And I am so refreshed by this week off, I can hardly describe the difference in me. I am planning for my next week off. That is the goal now. Every time I finish a week's vacation, I plan the next week's vacation so that I have something to cling to desperately through the winter of my discontent, which is basically every winter because I am an autumn and spring person. Winter is coming, dun, 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 as I cross various fandoms. All right, what was I talking about? Oh yes, I want to finish the wild lettuce shawl. I completely disappointed poor Gigi Knitmore because she had generously offered to help me block it, and I didn't even touch it. I was thinking, I'll get this finished before I go up there, and the days slipped away. Okay, maybe that means we'll be blocking it in Sacramento in February. We shall see. But I have that on the front burner now, because I just really want to get it done. Now, of course, I need popcorn knitting, which in this case is popcorn crochet. So I need to catch up the temperature blanket. I think on the temperature blanket, I'm caught up to about August 29th. And I'm really happy about it. I can't explain. I just really enjoy it. It's mindless crochet. And I can't recommend the temperature blanket idea enough. If you're a crocheter, it's just a whole lot of fun. And, blankets are a nice crochet project. I usually don't knit them because to me that's kind of a waste to knit something that I can do 5 times faster with a hook in my hand. And also, the fabric from knitting versus the fabric from crochet. Now, I am not talking about Tunisian crochet because I have not mastered it. And Lexicom's brilliant patterns would show you that it produces the most gorgeous fabrics. But that is not me. So I'm talking about good old-fashioned crochet here. Of course, they produce very different fabrics. Knitting is a flatter, thinner fabric. Of course, all that varies based on yarn size, etc. But on the whole, with the same yarn and roughly equivalently sized, if you can say that, hooks versus needles, you get a thicker fabric from crochet. We all know this, right? The crochet is basically a series of knots, whereas knitting is a series of loops wrapped around the necks of the previous row of loops. So you get a flatter, somewhat thinner fabric. And I much prefer the knitting fabric for most, but not all, wearable goods. Definitely wins in sweaters for me. I like the way it appears when it's stretched over a human form better in knitting. Again, with the exception of Tunisian crochet, which is kind of this middle ground between them, leaning more towards appearing like knitting and looks beautiful all the time, in my opinion, but I haven't mastered it. Okay. But plain crochet, I'd rather wear a knitted than a crocheted sweater, although I do wear both. And I have enjoyed making both. And let me tell you, if you want a fast sweater, I can do one in crochet in a weekend. So, yeah, when I needed sweaters fast, that's what I did. I used up a lot of my old acrylic stash and made highly abusable acrylic sweaters. Anyway, going back, when you're making blankets, same thing, I'd really rather make it in regular crochet because I like that thicker fabric and I like the higher speed of production and it looks fantastic. And there's some really easy basic stitches in crochet that make chevrons and ripples and all sorts of interesting patterns really easy and accessible and a lot more comfortable for me to make than the same patterns in knitting. So the one place I really prefer crochet would be blankets. So let me tell you, I can't recommend the temperature blanket enough. By the way, in case you're wondering, the other place I prefer crochet is middies. I make little fingerless mitts for myself all the time, and they come out beautifully in either knitting or crochet. And I happen to like to just crochet them really fast. It's a really easy project-free pattern over on Lion Brand Yarns. I mean, doesn't get better than that. Okay, enough of this madness. But you are saying, Gemma, what about Twin Faces Vest? Da, 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 da. That's a dirge. I'm trying to do a dirge because I don't know where the thing is, and she's lost interest. And, okay, we're still struggling to get that one even back to me to finish. It's hard when you love somebody and they are a really good recipient of handmade goods to realize that they are not good on hand-fitted goods. I'm just saying. Meanwhile, my hand-spun brick, I am thinking back on that a little at a time because the rows are huge, but I'm getting there. And I'm looking forward to actually running the yarn for the divide between the arms and the body. And I had to think back and take out a lot, alas, of my beautiful alpaca. However, there's still a lot of it in there, and now I've got a lot extra, and I'm looking at just messing with the arms, like knitting the arms and the body in parallel. So knit 10 rows on the body, knit 10 rows on the arms, knit 10 rows on the body, knit 10 rows on the arms. I really want to use up the alpaca yarn. I am not as sanguine about having it over the breast area because it does not have stretch. So I'm thinking my way through this, but I have many good options, and we'll see how that works out. But I just love having it across the shoulder band of the yoke, and it's been a lot of fun. So as we go, I'm thinking back on that. Let's see, I am not wearing any of my knitting this week. It's in the hundreds. Yes, just finally got in 2 rows of the rouge, that is the reddish pink yarn on the temperature blanket. And I think I mentioned, speaking of my 2 favorite resources here, haven't heard from Webbs, but they seem to be alive and well after Hurricane Ida. Bless you, Webbs, wherever you are. I'm always a fan. And Lisa Souza is back in her home, she and Mr. Souza Rod, and I just ordered a skein of yarn from them because I realized that I will probably be making a DK yoke sweater. More on that later. I want to make Twin Face something for Christmas, but if she doesn't get the lead out, I don't know how that's going to happen, so I am planning other sweaters. Dizzy Blondes, no action. Still working on the beautiful merino from Morro Bay Fleece Works, which is looking likely to become a sweater, which leads us to the strategy. And this is the ultimate mindfulness strategy. I did not mean to do this one, but it seems like I'm going to. The strategy is very simply seize the day. Carpe diem. Why? Well, after all this talk of mindfulness and meditation and all this talk of being in the moment, carpe diem, seize the day in Latin, is the most mindful of all mottos you can have. Seize the day. Live in this moment. I was listening to the fluffy novel Restoration by Rose Tremaine, and I was realizing as I read it that the king who plays such a major part in the protagonist's life dies of a stroke at age 54. In fact, may be dead by the end of this novel. I'm curious to see. And I was thinking about that and thinking, well, he lived this really riotous, libertine kind of existence. And he had a certain amount of stress. He was a Stuart king restored to his throne after being exiled in France. And so you think, well, yeah, if anybody's going to get a stroke young, Charles II of England would be the one. But I was thinking about that and thinking about, yeah, we don't talk about aging in our culture. We just pretend elderly people don't exist. And we hide a lot of their problems and we ignore a lot of their problems. And so I thought, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to age in America. And there's not a lot of generosity in America towards the aging. When I lived in Britain, I was really surprised at how kind the British were to their elderly and how aware of their presence. And America, nah. I mean, everybody treats you badly, including medical doctors, bus drivers, you name it. There's very little compassion in the culture I'm in for the elderly. And I find that discouraging, but I also find it a wake-up call that however and wherever I live my golden years, as they're called, it's really important that I'm enjoying what I have right now. And I've arrived at a nice place in life, and I've worked hard for it. And it's a little scary. And one of the things that's scary is you really see that the decisions my peers made in their early lives are coming home to roost. You see the people who kind of lived a little bit on the wild side are really paying a certain price for that as they age. I feel grateful that I made a lot of careful plans and they've basically worked out. And I understand that not everybody gets the chances I've had, which is why I'm all the more grateful that the things I've done and the plans I've laid have worked out. And I'm grateful to have made it this far that they can work out. But it is kind of important to realize that none of us knows how long we're going to get. And also, none of us knows where our country is going. I mean, let's face it, America is definitely having huge political problems right now. And I had a lot of years of security in a relatively stable government to build up to where I am today. And so you really have to use that. You really have to be aware that things can change very rapidly, and you have to do your best to make your plans as reasonably as you can, and also to, once you've made your plans, to live happily in the moment. Now, your brain and your body like this idea that it is important that carpe diem is a really good philosophy for mental and physical health. That, in other words, seizing the day means I'm a runner and I live in the desert. When it's a good morning, I go out and run. Or if I can't go out and run, I take advantage of a lull in my patients, or I take advantage of some low-key patients and I bike on my fit desk. Or if I get a free evening, I run over and I climb at the gym. That seizing the day means in this moment, what's the best thing I can do? And often it is self-care. And that means maintaining your body as well as maintaining your hobbies and your knitting. Also, in terms of mental health, obviously those things, those behaviors are really good for your mental health and your physical health, because maintaining your mental health has a lot to do with maintaining your physical health and vice versa. Okay, but also in your brain cannot tell the difference between making a plan and simply worrying. So when you seize the day, when you stop and take stock of what you have and lay good plans, your brain likes that, and it gives you opiates. It gives you the endorphins that we're all addicted to in a natural sense, as we should be. That helps to guide us in our world. Unfortunately, if I don't seize the day, if I'm just sitting around worrying, my brain still gives me opiates because it can't tell the difference, but my body can. So when I am worrying pointlessly instead of making a good plan, my body gives me all the unhappy hormones that eventually create the stress toxins that eventually wear down your cardiovascular system and kill you as you age. Okay, so seizing the day is actually life and health enhancing. You're redirecting the good chemicals in your brain to reward you appropriately, and you're cutting off the flow of more dangerous chemicals to your body. Okay, so when you seize the day, when you take stock, make plans, and do things in the here and now, such as exercise or cleaning or creating a schedule or whatever, when you do those things in the real time, in the now, all of these things help you and represent the virtue of seize the day. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm enjoying my day. I'm enjoying where I am and who I am. And part of that enjoyment is recognizing how seize the day has been such an important idea for me. While you're seizing the day, I would recommend one book, and that is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I believe the author is Stephen Covey, C-O-V as in Victor, E-Y. And I will put a link in the show notes. Why do I want you to read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? I was directed to it when I became a manager yet again. I've been a manager in 4 or 5 jobs. I've never been particularly bad or particularly good until my most recent job, which I got fired from for being a very good manager, which explains why they're going under. That's all right. It was me and 17 other managers in the same year who got fired. They're a mess. But the interesting thing is they brought in a management consultant who told them what to do, and they promptly fired him for knowing what they needed to do. And he gave us a reading list, and that was the first book on the list. And he said, if you read nothing else on this list, read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I did, and it's life-changing. I overnight became a much better manager. My team's productivity went from 62% to like 94%, literally inside of a month. And that's when he and I got fired, because at a manager's meeting, while the vice president wanted to blame all the managers, the consultant said, but who is this person who did this amazing job in 1 month? And the vice president said, don't listen to her, she's new. And he said, no, we should be listening to her. She's the only one who's figured out what needs to be done. Yeah, that didn't work well for either of us. Toxic management. But I have to laugh because that's what that book did for me. And I believe it will do it for you if you pay attention. The 2 important things I took from the book are Chapter 1, Proactivity, and I believe it's Chapter 4, where he does a time management grid, where he balances the ideas of tasks that are important and not important versus tasks that are urgent and not urgent. And following that grid and accepting my need to be proactive has completely changed my life. And it's a wonderful thing to learn this in your 50s so that, really the third act of your life is suddenly really valuable and productive in ways I never dreamed it could be. So all of this goes back to say the strategy for today is seize the day, carpe diem. That is the ultimate mindfulness. Use today to move yourself forward, to make good plans, and to care for yourself productively. Okay, put a lid on it. Yes, the Keto Boot Camp is still going. Yes, I posted another LCHF_Italian recipe. Yes, it's in grams. Yes, I've got to figure out how to convert it. These are mini cheesecakes, and this is really easy. It's almond flour, swerve, and melted butter, and you mix those together and push them into the bottom of 4 refrigeratable cups. Now, I've used a different recipe that just used the butter and the flour. I don't think you need to put sweetener into that, but if you want to put sweetener into it, go ahead. And this recipe, this particular one, I have not tried. This is a variation on a recipe I have given you in the past. Now, what I like about this recipe, like I like my own chocolate cheesecake recipe, is this is a refrigeration recipe. This one does not depend on gelatin. In fact, actually looking at it, as long as you're not vegan, if you're a vegetarian, this one will work for you. But I like this. I want to try it. This is really easy. So I apologize for the grams. One of these days I'll work out the equivalents in tablespoons and cups for you Americans. But this is really easy. It's 150 grams of almond flour, a tablespoon of swerve, 75 grams of melted butter. Yeah, I really got to transfer that to American logic. She does not say how many cups. I'm assuming this is 4 cups. Her picture shows 2 cups. But again, it varies based on the size of your cup, doesn't it? So you may have to experiment. But I wanted to give you this because this is a really easy thing. And if you weigh your food, this is going to be like a 5-minute recipe. All right, let me say it again. 150 grams of almond flour, a tablespoon of swerve or some kind of powdered sweetener, 75 grams of melted butter. Mix it all together and then push it into the bottom of your cups. Put those into the fridge for an hour. Then it's 500 grams of cream cheese, the juice of 1 lemon, which I think is, I'm trying to remember what they have on the side of the lemon juice bottle that you can buy. I think that's like 3 tablespoons. 3 tablespoons of powdered sweetener. I put in swerve and 5 eggs. Mix that all together well. I'd probably go for a hand mixer on this one or a mixing bowl. And anyway, you're going to pour that over the refrigerated crusts in their cups. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a bake recipe. And then you bake it at 350 Fahrenheit or 175 centigrade for 30 minutes. So this is assemble the crust, takes like 5 minutes, fridge it for an hour, mix all the other stuff, beat it up together, pour it over the crust and into the oven. And I wanted to put this in because it's an alternative to the cheesecake I have given you where I use gelatin and just refrigerate it. I'd like to try it myself. I haven't adjusted for altitude because we're at high altitude and that's what has stopped me. But I wanted to pass it on to you while it was still floating around the internet. Okay, Dr. Gemma back from a brief break to let the dog girls in and chase the kitten cat as she ran out the back door to see if she could meet the coyotes at last. She does this every time you open the door. Then she gets out into the open on our back patio and freezes and lies down and looks a bit panic-stricken. So going after her, picking her up and explaining why we have to keep her safe and kissing her little furry head. Well, it's just all part of the routine, isn't it? On to shoot. Well, no fit desk mileage because I've been nowhere near the fit desk for the last few days. But I have been rock climbing. I did do the celebration birthday rock climb, tiara and all. And it was a blast. The beloved, for some reason, videoed it, which I didn't want. All I wanted was pictures of me and my crown climbing. However, turns out my tiara is pretty hard to photograph from the ground 30 feet away. It doesn't show up very well. Pictures, not as much as I would have liked. However, I have some good ones, and I posted them in the show notes. One of them was in response to the comment I get most often, which is, aren't you scared? And I'm afraid of heights, and etc. Yes, I'm scared. Yes, I'm also afraid of heights. So I posted a picture and it says reaching the top on camera. And what it is I'm going up one of the easy paths and you can see my two hands up in the air because the camera I'm using is actually a GoPro mounted on my forehead for this one. But I wanted to take that picture because I wanted to show you why I'm not scared. And there's two reasons evident in that picture. Reason number one, you can see a web taping going up to a circular container. That is the belaying engine, and the web is my harness attachment. I'm not scared because I've already tried it out. If I fall, that thing catches me. And I did my homework. There have been very, very few accidents with these automatic belay systems. And basically the accidents are generally traceable to the person forgot to clip in or did not check their clip to make sure it was securely closed. Believe it or not, when you get excited and you see a rock wall, it is easy to forget to clip in. So they put these big pieces of fabric in your way that have written on them, don't forget to clip in, or other such encouraging and intellectual messages. And thank goodness they do, because it's really easy to get excited and just start climbing, particularly if you do the other walls in the gym that don't involve belaying with an automatic engine. You might be hearing blankets in the background encouraging me to do I know not what. Get your nose out of my wool, please. Oh my goodness, she's talking to herself. Blankets is a German Shepherd. One of the things German Shepherds do is they tell you when Timmy is in the well. That Blankets is a genius at identifying things in the house that are not right and reporting on them. So things like someone left a burner on the stove on, we have a gas stove, Blankets will come and tell me. Essentially what she's doing is she's saying something is different. This is one of the talents of German Shepherds, and this is why I'm very, very loyal to the breed, because Blankets has helped us to avoid a lot of strange problems that might have happened in our house. They are wonderful dogs who worry far too much for their own good. I will tell you though, once you've had a German Shepherd, it's hard to live without one because they basically become partners with you. They run the house with you. They cooperate with you. And you cannot believe how useful that has been on a farm with livestock. At any rate, going back to my climbing. So in the picture you can see the belaying engine. And that's why I don't worry, even though I'm up high. The other thing you can see is nothing but the wall. You can see my hands on the wall. That's pretty much what it looks like when you're climbing to the top. You just see your hands and you see all the rocks you're gripping or reaching for. You don't think about what's behind you in the open air. It's like that old standard statement when people are climbing in a scary movie. They say, don't look down, don't look down. Well, let me explain that when you're really focused on this, you don't have the vaguest inclination to look down because you're focused on your hands and your feet. Now, in the beginning, every so often I would climb up 10 or 20 feet and I would stop and look around to see if I could get over my fear of heights. And that worked. When I get to 30 feet and I look around, at this point I still tend to be pretty nervous, although I can do it and I want to do it. But generally, by the time I get to the top, I'm ready to just rappel down because my arms are getting tired. I mean, except for the first time I climb every time at the gym. That very first trip, I'm not tired usually at the top. But after a few trips, I am. Now, a friend from the gym, Amanda, thank you, Amanda, taught me a really good system for measuring how much workout I do. And I really am grateful for this. I had been setting the timer on my iWatch to 1 hour and just saying, keep going for 1 hour. But Amanda said, you know, you could take the last digit of the level of wall you're climbing and add those up to a certain value. So, for example, I climb 5.5s, which are the easiest. So if you take that 0.5, you just take the 5 there, and you add it. Every time you climb one, you get 5 points. So you work towards 100 points or 50 points. That's great because if you climb the harder walls, they're things like 5.11. So obviously it will take only half the number of climbs to reach my point goal as it would with the easiest walls. So I'm very excited about this system. The only problem is I don't always climb to the top. I started experimenting this week with 5.6s. And it was really interesting because I've gotten very good on the two 5.5 climbs. On the 5.6s and the 5.7s, I actually do okay on the 5.6s. But I get halfway up and I just panic. I just say, I can't do this. I can't do this. It's very interesting because that's what I did with the 5.5s. So apparently I just have to get used to it to feel successful. But anyway, that is the point system for assigning yourself a workout. So I'm thinking about starting with 25 points or 30 points and just sort of seeing how much I actually get done in an hour, how many points I accumulate. So in other words, this is an experiment. I would set my watch for 1 hour and then I would track my points and see what I get in a typical hour. And I'll have to assign points to other climbs that I occasionally do. Like I'll go over to one of the boulders that doesn't have an auto belay and I'll go up about 3 or 4 feet off the ground. That is, my feet are about 4 or 5 feet off the ground. And then I'll drop because I don't like climbing high without a belay rope because, still nervous and very untrained. Okay, so anyway, that is my rock climbing that I did get comfortable. I thought I was going to be away for about a week because I also did not rock climb right before I went north because I was quarantining for the sake of the little kids I was going to be hanging with. I realized that I'm not used to being around kids under 12 who can't get vaccinated. So I did hold off from going to the gym the last few days and tried to just sort of quarantine a little bit so I wouldn't be, infecting any kids any more than I had to. So I thought, well, I'm going to be really lousy. Well, as it turns out, 2 things changed. One was, no, I was really rested. And 2, I had my new La Sportiva Tarantulace climbing shoes. To my shock, I couldn't get on the easiest climb, so I went on the second easiest, the one I was having trouble getting to the top on. Although I could get to the top, it was hard. I went up it with no effort whatsoever with the better shoes. Turns out, not having your feet in screaming agony does make a difference when you climb rock walls. In the pictures, you will also see that first climb. You'll see my hand is on the finish tag because I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And I also included a picture of me in my climbing clothes and harness, wearing my mask and my tiara, standing in front of the auto belay wall that I love to climb. So, and I put a nice little quote, which is a little ungrammatical, but I will correct somewhat. Some people say a woman of a certain age shouldn't wear a crown of femurs made from her vanquished enemies. But really, a woman of any age should wear what makes her feel confident. I couldn't resist that quote. I don't know what that's from, but I had to put it in there. On to the fluffy books. Well, I just am including A Lady's Guide to Gossip and Murder, which I still have to finish. I did finish, as I said previously, A Lady's Guide to Mischief and Murder. Those are both by Diane Freeman. These are the allegedly frothy, lighthearted mysteries about socialites in Victorian England, and the protagonist is American, and they all talk like 21st century people wearing corsets, except maybe they don't swear as much. But they all have our values, and I don't know, it's fun, but just give up on the historicity, okay? I finished Restoration by Rose Tremaine, which I greatly enjoyed in spite of myself. Took a while to get me interested, but I finished it. And I am reading its sequel, Merivale, or rather I am listening to its sequel more than reading it. I also downloaded Bait and Witch by Angela Sanders, but I haven't gotten to it yet. That is the rather witchy series that's fairly new. Bait and Witch is only the second book in the series. Ah, yes, something I really like. An ad for an overpriced vaccination card holder popped up on my Instagram a few weeks back. And I was attracted to the one that had a Starfleet logo with the medical insignia across on it. And then it says, Plague Ship. And I saw the one on Instagram and it was kind of idiotically overpriced. So I went to Etsy, the source of many good things, and I just searched vaccination card holder. I'm not putting a link in because so many people are making these and so many people have shared or stolen designs from each other that I honestly cannot recommend any of them. These are not high quality things. They're just sort of a kind of vinyl, actually a polyurethane coated fabric. and somebody's got an embroidering sewing machine, and good for them. So I did buy the Starfleet Plague Ship one, and there is a picture of it with my Vax card with my thumb artistically blocking my personal information. But there it is. And I was going to use this when I went north, but it didn't arrive in time, and I was a bit worried I might need it as I traveled, but I did not. However, I do think having a Vax card holder is a really good idea because they're fragile little things. This thing is big and clunky and has a clip to hook onto whatever, a purse or a backpack. So there it is, my vaccination card holder. And what I would tell you is search Etsy for vaccine card holder. On to the blather. Well, we still have a bunch of games piled up on the dining room table waiting for us to play them during my vacation, but didn't happen. What we did do was we started doing wooden puzzles by Unidragon, and the link to this is in the show notes for episode 43. And my son gave me a little one of a beautiful fox, and I did that on my birthday, I believe. I just sat in bed. Everybody else was taking naps after we went climbing. So I actually just sort of sat in bed with a bed tray and assembled my beautiful fox. And I love her. She's called the alluring fox because, foxes for some reason should be sexualized. I don't know. But at any rate, had a lot of fun. She was about 100 pieces. And the pieces themselves are carved into little shapes, like there were butterflies and fish and a dog and a horse and a cat, And so these are really fun puzzles, and they're beautifully made. And they do sell from their website a little kit to put stickiness on their back and hold them together so that you can hang them on your wall. I don't know, but I really, really enjoyed doing the puzzle. And then I turned 61, and there is a picture, a diagram of me at 61, which I'm really relieved because in it I'm wearing exercise clothing, including the mandatory jog bra, the encouraging t-shirt logo, and I'm holding my climbing shoes. I'm just relieved because during the pandemic, you may remember I had COVID, and I got very weak, and I got very lightheaded, and I had a very difficult year when I look back at 2020. It was very stressful. Although the bonus points were I got to work from home, and I still am working from home. And I really had given up a lot of my self-care regimen just to get past COVID. First of all, I was in denial that I had it and was very lightheaded, but it made me give up running. I'd been running early in the summer and then was just too lightheaded to go on. And that had a lot to do with getting the Fit Desk bike. But I'm back at running. I started running again this spring. And right now I'm working on upper body strength. And that is a bit easier, I suppose, although I certainly come down with my heart pounding and gasping for air sometimes, partly from the anxiety of climbing. But again, I really like working on my fear of heights as I climb. I like the fact that I'm pushing back against that. And also I like that my upper body is definitely getting stronger. I can see it in my upper arms and shoulders now, which is a bit of a shock. So there's a diagram of Dr. Gemma at 61. And it's important to me, too, because I think I was 9 or 10 years old when my father got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in his late 40s. And a doctor then sat me down and said, "You're going to get this. It's almost inevitable." And again, when I was pregnant, I had pregnancy diabetes, and they said, "You are going to get diabetes." And I said, "Okay." And the name of the game became, how long can I push it off? When an acquaintance of mine was pregnant at the same time as me, and she came out of her pregnancy with permanent type 2, and I said, okay. So I'm pleased because I did start running in secret because my family was kind of hard on that sort of exercise. They thought it was just a fad. It was 1970, and it was a fad, actually. But I started running when I was 10, and I got serious when I was in high school. I had the world's worst menstrual cycles. They were excruciatingly painful, and my period went on and on and on, and really irregularly. And I got committed to running, and strangely, my menstrual cycle leveled out, and most of the PMS went away, and my menstrual cycle became as regular as a clock. I could predict it until basically I hit menopause. And that was all based on routine exercise. Will that work for every young woman? I have no idea. But I think it is a solution that is not talked about enough, that routine exercise does help with that situation. So, all I can say is I became a dedicated runner at the age of 10. And when everybody else was giving it up, when I got into my 20s, most of my friends were like, oh, I did that in high school, but I don't do that anymore. And of course, there were the inevitable people who attacked me on my runs on the Stanford campus, up by the Dish, and various other locations, which is why I run when I can with an armed and loaded German Shepherd. Because you take a German Shepherd off leash on a trail, people literally jump off the trail to get away from you because they think shepherds are insane and will attack them. Actually, they're a wonderful, gentle breed in my 3 experiences of them. But at any rate, it's been an interesting thing because I've been encouraged by medical people. No, you'll get a prolapsed uterus. Hasn't happened yet. You'll have a prolapsed bladder. Hasn't happened yet. You'll ruin your knees. Hasn't happened yet, but that is a realistic problem in my generation because we didn't have running shoes when I started. You just ran in anything. And we didn't have running clothes till I was in my late 20s. Those were invented. But running shoes were invented when I was in college, a dedicated running shoe. They were still rather primitive compared to what's out there today. But it is a miracle that my knees have survived. But I have also always used a lot of common sense about my running, and I've had a lot of luck because some people just get hurt and it's not their fault. Twisted ankles, that sort of thing. So I've been very, very fortunate. But I have been a runner now, for half a century. And the reason I posted that picture of myself at 61 is that is the payoff. Now, I've been a runner with a carbohydrate addiction, and I did get diabetes, which I believe is related to carbohydrate addiction. And like all addictions, that's a gene, and I have it. And it's been important to me to identify that to my son, and he is now a very confirmed athlete as I record this. He didn't swim this year because of COVID, but he is on 2 different track teams. He's on cross country for his school and a regular track club that meets in the Santa Clarita Valley, and he's also climbing at the gym with me. And I have to tell you, of all the people I've seen at the gym, my son is probably the single strongest individual I've met there. He is astonishingly strong in his upper body strength. He was getting a little tubby with the pandemic, and he's just a tiny bit tubby, and it doesn't seem to matter. He is still amazing. So what you're looking at there is the whole point. Get your kids to exercise. This is a lifelong thing. You want to really drill into them that if they want to be healthy in their old age, this is one of the ways it's going to happen. There are chronic illnesses that are very hard to avoid, like diabetes. I definitely have friends who've had heart problems and all sorts of other things. And for them, I do not know enough. I sound very ableist is what I'm saying. I do not know enough about maintenance with various physical disabilities. I have not had to walk that path. I've certainly dealt with it in patients who have taught me somewhat. But I'm saying if you are healthy and you are able, believe me, it is going to serve you well to develop an exercise habit in your youth or to do it with your kids. It will save their lives later when you're not around to protect them. And you want to do this for your whole life. And the reality is, as someone's t-shirt on a bike trail said, stay strong and live long. And that's about it. So I got up on my birthday. The first thing was Minerva, jumped on my bed. She had been biting me when I came home the day before. She wouldn't have anything to do with me and kept biting me when I came near her. 4 a.m, Minerva jumps on my bed, squashes her head against my face, and purrs her brains out and says, oh, thank God you're home, and wraps her arms around my neck and proceeds to become a total love sponge. It was the sweetest happy birthday, although I could have waited 4 more hours for it instead of 4:30 in the morning, but I kissed her, hugged her. She stayed on me for a long time, purring and meowing at me and talking to me, and we fell asleep together with her by my side. And then I got up and I just said, I'm going to take it easy. The boys had already given me roses the day before for my homecoming. Not sure where they went. They were not around. Oh, yes, they took my son out running. I do regret. I was offered the chance to do what I thought was a 5K. Turns out to have been a 4K. And I didn't take the chance that apparently at my son's track meet, they had an open 4K for adults. And I slept through that, which I'm kind of grateful for. So I had a very easy morning. I did a little bit of housekeeping, just sort of maintenance stuff, and got my laundry in and just started the wonderful process of unpacking. I hate to say it, I love to travel and I love to come home. I love the gradual process of putting things back to rights and putting everything where it belongs after I've traveled. So I enjoyed that, and then I put on my climbing duds and I went off to top out to our local climbing gym where I met the son and husband. And I had a blast. My husband sat down at the bottom and just filmed me with his phone. Unfortunately, Androids, they film in MP4 format, and I'm having a terrible time trying to convert that and use it elsewhere, or I would put those films up. However, he took some good pictures of me in the tiara, and I did climb in the tiara, which got a lot of laughs. You know, a few people came up and said, that's wonderful. And I said, well, it's my birthday. And I made sure to tell everybody today is my birthday. When I went into the gym, they greeted me by saying, happy birthday. I believe I am the oldest climber at the gym. There are a few guys in their 50s who seem to be really, really skilled rock climbers. I don't know. I don't say much about my age when I'm at the gym, but I'm clearly the oldest person there. And I'm kind of intrigued by the idea that rock climbing isn't a bad, dare I say it, geriatric activity. It's an interesting way to work your upper body rather than just the tedium of lifting weights. So I had a great time climbing, and I was in my new shoes, as I think I mentioned in the last episode. So I did not get on the easiest trail, which is where I usually start just to build confidence. I got on the second easiest trail, the one I was struggling to get to the top on, the one that I was worried about, my confidence. Well, scrambled right up to the top and said, okay, it's been about the shoes. Who knew that? So suddenly I can do the slightly harder trails better and can get a third to a half the way up those. Everything's just going better. That's what I'm saying with the better shoes. And I tried a few different trails and I hung out with my son and we climbed, and my husband just sat around taking pictures. He says he's going to climb. He's making excuses now. Now we're on to it's too expensive. And I said, you know it's not. We had gym memberships. It's more expensive than a standard gym membership, I grant you. But it's also a more intense and successful workout for me. And I don't need a gym membership. I can run in our neighborhood with blankets next to me for protection. Or I can run in some of the safer neighborhoods down in Santa Clarita. And I can certainly bike on the Fit Desk. So I don't need the other gym memberships. So we've ended 2 gym memberships. And yeah, these are a bit pricier, but I'm not driving to work. We can afford it. So he's warming up to maybe I'll climb, maybe I'll climb. We'll see how that goes. But he had a good time being our cameraman. Then we went out to the Habit and had an enormous lunch of salads and burgers. I had the salads, they had the burgers. And we took the obligatory birthday selfie. Now I know several of you have said, but what about the silly string battle? We haven't had a silly string battle. The boys are away tonight. It's my first day back to work. I have a full schedule today, which is very nice. I'm looking forward to it. I like these patients. My Tuesday group are a really nice bunch. Actually, all my patients right now are a really nice bunch. So I'm looking forward to that. But since I don't have the boys around for dinner, I may go to Party City. Yeah, the silly string battle may still have to happen. But there is the obligatory birthday selfie. It came out adorable. We took it in my husband's study, actually, all leaning on his love seat, his big overstuffed love seat. And finally, somebody sent me a dancing collie animation for my birthday. Thank you, Nan. I believe it's from the old CBS cartoon of Lassie's Rescue Rangers. And it is hilarious. And so I have put it into my GoPro and slowed it down frame by frame in selected frames. And I should talk about the GoPro. I got a GoPro for my birthday, and I've been experimenting with it. It is the 7 Plus, because the newest one is the 9, and frankly, they've reached a point in these cameras where they do everything. I'm not sure that the 8 or the 9 are any better, but they are $200 more expensive than the 7, and I am loving my GoPro 7, and perhaps I will talk about that in my next episode. But meanwhile, Minerva is going to get... Oh, by the way, we all went home after we had the big lunch, And that's where my husband and son both passed out and took naps, which I thought was hilarious. And I was exhausted but couldn't sleep, so I assembled the alluring fox puzzle. And then for dinner, we went down to our favorite sushi place. And we talked about how a year ago this time we had the pavilion set up and had sushi outside the pavilion. The pavilion did not get set up for this birthday because we don't have a big tent. I plan to remedy that. I'm thinking we might need a pavilion in the fall if we can find a way to protect it from the wind. Because now we have a portable propane burning stove, like a barbecue to go with the pavilion, and we have a little fire pit. And I'm thinking we need to go back to that logic and think about having a pavilion. But more on that in later episodes, because it was mighty nice to sit out and watch the sunset on my 60th birthday while eating sushi with my boys. And this year it was mighty nice to sit in the restaurant, to be indoors again, and to eat sushi with my boys. And we went home and we agreed that a great time had been had by all. And I believe I sat around and knitted to finish my day. So it was an insanely wonderful birthday. Minerva gets the last word because she was part of it. She became the Velcro birthday kitty, and she still is. Since I returned from the Bay Area, the dogs were hilariously, hysterically glad to see me, but they're pretty much their old selves. Minerva is living a terrible life of anguish every time I go out the door, that she can't get over that I left for 4 or 5 days. So now everywhere I go, I have this little black shadow following me around. And, well, actually, I guess most shadows are black. I'd say I have this little black furry shadow with a tail, okay? Unlike most of the shadows I cast, following me around. And I have pictures of her. She's lying on the bed while I was assembling the puzzle. There's one. She's lying next to me. And there's another where she's glued to my knee the morning of my birthday, that she keeps lying against me, talking to me, and encouraging me to stroke her head and following me around. So I've had Velcro Kitty since I came home, which is good. It's good to make her a little desperate and a little bit grateful, I have to say. And it is wonderful to be home again where I belong. So all is well here. We're all healthy. People are doing fine. We're still living a very sequestered kind of life. I mean, we have more freedom than we had before we got vaccinated. But, you know, it's not what it used to be. And in many ways, I'm grateful for that. My one concern now is the climbing gym. We have to be masked when we climb. And the other thing is we're all really hyper careful with our hands. The one thing you can't avoid, if you're going to climb, everybody's grabbing the same thing. So if somebody's got COVID on their hands, you know, could be risky. They do not disinfect all the handholds as far as I know. But there's disinfectant all over the place that you can use. And I think for me, the rule has been you mask up, you go in, you disinfect your hands. I change in the restroom. I use the restroom, and then I will change there, and then I will come out and put on my shoes and harness. And one of the advantages of having my own shoes is, again, I'm the only one handling them, so that will reduce some contact, but I'm still using a shared harness, which you can see them disinfecting and cleaning them every day. But the real trick here is I disinfect my hands and chalk up and climb. And the rule is I don't touch any part of me while my hands are in that state. That's about the best you can do. And you don't put your hands on your face the whole time. And everybody talks about it. Everybody talks about how they're being careful and how we're very aware of this as climbers. But you still have a lot of people who are hot, sweaty, could be COVID exposed, and they're breathing hard, and we're all masked. So I think we're like this walking, talking lab experiment. And so far, so good that we've all been to the gym. We seem to be doing okay. And of course, the minute I walk out of the gym, the harness goes in the basket for the rental harnesses. And then you do it all again. You disinfect all over yourself. I go in the restroom and I change into fresh clothes. And I get off my climbing shoes and everything. And I also will wipe myself down. I have the Lume deodorant towelettes that are, you know, they're like wet ones with deodorant in them. So basically, I take a shower in the restroom at the gym with those after I climb and wash myself off really well. So that seems to be working well. If I inhale COVID at the gym, that would be a problem. But so far, so good. And after all, we are all masked. But in terms of contact, that's what we're doing, and it seems to be working. So what I'm really telling you is the same old thing, which is be very, very careful out there. You need to socially distance. You need to wash your hands. You need to get vaccinated, and you need to wear your mask. And it's really not that hard to do these things. So if you do all those things, all I can say is you indeed will stay safe and you will take care of each other. So I can talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.